This is Joe Michelina. I'm the math coordinator and coach with Modesto City Schools, grades 7-12. And we have Carlton Grizzle. He is leading our webinar today from Pearson. And as you may or may not know, we have Pearson available to us for the rest of the school year should you choose to use it. You are not being forced to use it, but I think you'll find that it could be helpful for our students under this situation. We are going to be using it next year, but we'll let Carlton, he's going to throw a lot of information at you today. So he's doing in 2 hours what our pilot teachers did in about 6 hours, and they were overwhelmed. Just get out of this what you can today, and then Veronica Davalos and I will be available for questions. You also have pilot teachers from your sites, hopefully, that you could go to. We just spoke with them this morning. They're more than willing to help with any of this. So I'm taking too much of your time, Carlton. So with that, go ahead and take over.
All right, thanks, Joe, and thanks, Veronica, for having us and letting us help you guys out here. This is definitely a partnership, and we're all in this together. And the Envision platform, or the Envision curriculum and the Real Life platform, is a very sophisticated platform full of tons of digital content that you'll be able to use with your students this spring, and then obviously in the fall as well, once you guys officially start using the program. And this is honestly a really good introduction to the platform. So, you know, during these next few weeks, you can play with it a little bit, and then when we do the formal trainings later on in the spring and then in the fall, you guys will be way ahead of the curve and know how to use a lot of the program already. You can see the agenda on the screen right now, and obviously you are all going to want to know how to create your classes and add students, and those are the first two items on the agenda. But I want to let you know that we're going to be covering those important items towards the end of the 2-hour session that we have here. And the reason we're going to create classes and add students towards the end is because I know that if I show you how to do that now, you'll be spending all your time working on creating classes and adding students, and you may miss some of the stuff about the platform. Rather than getting an in-depth training on the philosophy of the program and the problem-based learning approach and that sort of thing, I try to go through and figure out, what teachers would want to access and send to their students, in a situation like this. And I want to point out, the tools that are available to you online and how to access those and create assignments and that sort of thing. So that's really going to be the focus. I can show you where to get more information. If you want to dive deeper into the program, you're certainly welcome to. But that is our agenda for the day. And this next slide that I'm going to show you, this is how you're going to access your account currently. So for those of you who have not yet set up your account, or even if you have set up your account, right now for the spring, you're going to access the Pearson Realize platform and the Envision AGA curriculum by going to pearsonrealize.com. So go ahead and take a second to log in there, and I'm going to check the email. Oh, and I'm sorry, the chats. I just noticed in the chat folks talking about all the beeping that's going on. Yeah, anytime someone joins or leaves the call, it's going to beep like that. So that's what that beeping means. But everyone go to pearsonrealize.com, and then you can log in using the credentials that Joe and Veronica sent you. Or if you don't have your own credentials, you can log on using these credentials. And these are the Modesto City Schools demo credentials that we set up some time ago for the pilot teachers when they were first checking out the curriculum. And so if you don't have your own account yet, this is one of the ways that you can log in and follow along with the training. I'll leave that up there for just a second. If you want to take a screenshot of that, this account will be active for quite some time. So you'll be able to log in and use this demo account. Also, if you want to use a sandbox account, if you will, and you don't want to affect your own classes, you're welcome to practice in this account, and that way it won't affect your actual classes as you are working. So I'll give just a few more seconds on this slide, and then we'll move on. All right. So last week sometime, I sent a couple of documents to Joe and Veronica, and then they forwarded those to you. I will be referring to those documents. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to print them out yet or not. And if you didn't, it's no big deal. But if you have printed them out, I just want to mention that these are pretty good graphic organizers to help us keep track of the content that we're going over and the realized platform. So if you have printed these documents out already, go ahead and grab them. And we're actually going to jump right into the digital platform right now and begin our tour. So I'm going to switch over to the Realize account. And go over here to my Realize account. And when you first log in and you've created your account, you should see a page that looks like this. And you've set up your account, you've chosen a background and an icon for yourself and that sort of thing. And if you see this, or if you see a page like this on your screen, please give me a yes or a thumbs up or something in the chat box so I'll know that you guys are all ready to go, and we can continue with the tour. So, all right, cool. Yeah, good. So I'm getting a bunch of yeses here, so I'll just wait a couple more seconds to make sure folks are on their actual account. And then we're going to begin the tour. If you look at that graphic organizer, it is a coordinate plane. And the nice thing about working with math teachers, we all know what the coordinate plane is and how to use it. If you look at the first quadrant, and then at the top right-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see the silhouette. I call this guy the halfling. And if you click on this silhouette, this is where you can go in and change the settings if you get tired of your backgrounds and that sort of thing. You'll be able to change your settings, change your name, etc. Now, there's one important thing about settings here. So when you first set up your account, you may have chosen just the content that you are teaching. For instance, if you're an Algebra 1 teacher and that's the only math class you teach, maybe that's the only curriculum that you chose, and that's absolutely fine. However, if you click on settings, it's going to take you to another page, and you're going to see 3 tabs along the top. So the first tab, that's where you can go in and change your username and email address and so forth. But I want to bring your attention to the My Programs tab. So again, if you're following along, click on the silhouette, top right corner, then choose Settings, and now click on the My Programs tab. And my account, I have all kinds of different curriculum listed here. But you should have Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 as choices in the Settings tab here. You can add all of the curricula, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, to your personal teacher library from this page right here. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you're teaching Algebra 1 and you're towards the end of the school year and you want to give a preview of geometry concepts to your Algebra 1 students. You can actually go into the geometry curriculum, find some assignments and some content that you want to assign to your students, and then your Algebra 1 students will be able to work in the geometry curriculum. Or maybe, your Algebra 2 kids are struggling with linear equations. Well, you can go back into Algebra 1, find some content on linear equations, and give it to your Algebra 2 students. So by adding the programs to your teacher library, that will give you access to all the content across all 3 levels of curriculum. So that's the silhouette, and obviously the sign out. That's important for security reasons, obviously. And then quadrant 2 on that study guide or that graphic organizer is the question mark, and this is probably the most important thing I'm going to be able to show you guys today. So if you click on that question mark in the top right corner, notice that when I click the question mark, I get a help box here, and then I have 4 different options. Please click on the Help for this page option. So I'm going to click Help for this page under the question mark, and then this window pops up, and wherever you are in the Realize platform, obviously you're going to get contextual help here for whatever page you're on in the Realize platform. But the most important thing I can show you today, with the limited amount of time we have, notice down in the bottom right-hand corner, it says Open in New Tab. So click the Open in New Tab link. And when you open a new tab, this is going to take you to an external website. It opens a new tab in your browser. And now this is the help content for all of the Realize platform. And I want you to notice that if you look at the top of this page, you have these drop-down menus, 5 different drop-down menus. And as you hover over each topic, it expands, and you'll be able to see the different items that you may need help with. So there's no way in the world that everyone's going to remember everything that we talk about today. But if you have questions, or if you just can't remember, how do I add a student to classes, or how do I look at data, then this is the first place that you should go, right here. So this is your go-to help feature. In fact, if you want to bookmark this page, do that, and that way you have quick access to it. But again, how did we get there? Well, here I am in Realize, back to the Realize platform. I clicked on the question mark. Let me close this. Click on the question mark. Then I go to Help for this page. And I click Open in New Window. And when I do, it opens that help page into, not there, here. This is where we go. All right. So please bookmark this page. Remember how to get here, because this is worth its weight in gold in terms of getting help for the platform. All right, so I'm going to go back to the Realize page by going back to the Realize tab in my browser, and you'll notice that a lot of the content that we open in Realize does open in a new tab along the top. So the reason for that is now we can very quickly, go between the Realize platform and the help page we just opened, or the Realize platform and the student edition, which I'll show you later. So opening content in Realize does not navigate you away from the platform. It simply opens in a new tab, and then you can navigate back and forth. All right, so here we are back in Realize, and back to the question mark. Another place that you can go for help when it comes to curriculum-specific help. And it's important to know the difference between the two here. So help for this page, this will lead you to a website that gives you information on how the Realize platform works, how to create assignments, how to add students to your class, how to check data, and that sort of thing. But if you're looking for questions, or if you're trying to get questions answered about Envision Math specifically, then you would need to go to Program Training. So Program Training, I'll click on that, will take you to another website, and you'll have to create your own account here. And when you create your own account, and we won't take the time to do that right now, but when you create your own account, you will be able to log in, and now you're going to have access to all of Pearson's training materials when it comes to curriculum-specific content. And you'll notice the big Envision link right there at the top of the page. You can click on that Envision link, and it's going to open up. Let's see here. This page, you can preview, video, but let's go to the specific program, and you'll notice that we have here, and it's important to find the right one, Envision AGA 2018 Common Core from this list. And you can click on that, and here you have on-demand training, and you'll see that within on-demand training, there's lots of ways that you can access help features. There are tutorial videos and handouts that you can print out for yourself. And then later in the fall, after you guys adopt the curriculum, you can actually schedule a webinar for yourself to get additional help. So, but for now, that is, two of the ways that you can access help on your own. But always feel free to reach out to Joe and Veronica, and then they can reach out to us, and we'll definitely try to help you guys as well. All right. So I know that there are a lot of comments coming in. I'm going to pause here for just a second and review the chat. And Joe, do you have anything to add at this point while I'm looking at the chats here?
I think, so some questions are coming in about PowerSchool linking. Veronica's been answering those. Remember that what Carlton's explaining to us right now is if you choose to use Pearson for the rest of this year, you don't have all of the bells and whistles that you would have next fall, but you would have more than enough for what we need to do for the rest of this year. And although you will have to set up your classes and some of that we'll talk about later on.
Yeah, and thanks for reminding me about that, Joe. That's something that I mentioned yesterday and I forgot to mention today. These are temporary accounts that you're working on right now. And so the way that you and your students will access these accounts now is very different than the way that you and your students will access the accounts in the fall. So once you come back, after summer break and we start school back in the fall, you and your students will access your accounts through a single sign-on process that your school district and our Pearson tech folks are going to set up for you. And that way, you and your students can, go to the school websites, log in very easily. Your classes are going to be created for you already. Your students are going to be automatically rostered. So that account creation process and course creation and adding students will be taken care of you, will be taken care for you behind the scenes, and then you guys will be able to simply log into your platform and just hit the ground running. So again, the accounts that you have right now are temporary. In the fall, you will receive your permanent accounts, and it will be much easier in terms of accessing the content and your classes and that sort of thing. So thanks for reminding me about that, Joe. I appreciate that. So back to the Real Life platform. So that is the question mark, the different help features that are available to you. And now I'm going to go to on the graphic organizer, quadrant number 3, the search tool. This is a way to search for specific content and any kind of items that you might want to assign to your students based on a topic. So, for instance, if I just need to very quickly access information on quadratics, I can, search for that item. And now you can see that I have up here over 276 results for components within the Envision Math curriculum that address quadratics. And then I can go through this, filter by type if I want. And if there's something I like, I can actually assign it to my students or refer to it, on my own as a teacher. But that's a very quick and easy way to find content is by using the magnifying glass. We also include a link at the top of this page. You see the black bar here that says Open Ed. This takes you to one of the organizations we have a partnership with called Open Ed. It's kind of like Google for Teachers, and they take teacher-submitted resources, make sure they're standards-based, and scrub them for inappropriate content and take away ads and that sort of thing. So this is another place that you can go for digital resources, handouts, and that sort of thing. If you can't find something that we have in our actual program, then we give you links to some of the offline resources here too. So again, that's under the magnifying glass. You search for the content, and then it will pop up, and you can choose whatever items you want from here. And then finally, the last quadrant on the first page of that graphic organizer I showed you is the My Library. This is something that I'm not going to spend too much time on because in the future, in the fall in particular, and you can certainly play with this this spring, any kind of customizations that you do to the curriculum, any documents that you upload or any quizzes that you create, they will live here in your library in perpetuity. So that way, if you upload a document in the fall and you want to access that same document the following year, that document will live right here in your library. So that's what this library is all about. And we'll spend more time on that when we actually do the full training that will help you guys get ready for the fall. All right, so to go home, I'm going to go all the way over to the left-hand side, and you see Pearson Realize, top left corner. I'm going to click on Pearson Realize, and that takes us back to our home page. So, ladies and gentlemen, if everyone would go home, I'm going to check the chats again. And Joe, Veronica, are there any questions that I need to address right now as we are waiting for, or as I'm checking the chats?
While Carlton is doing that, like you said, it's going to be overwhelming, and you have the question mark at the top to go back through some things. But remember what I may have said at the beginning, that each of your sites who had pilot teachers, we just had a conversation with them this morning, and they are more than happy to help what they have learned in the process of piloting. And so they are also resources for you to reach out to during your department meetings, your PLC meetings, whatever you guys may be doing at your sites. And then also Veronica and I are going to have more meetings where you guys can just ask us questions you have of Pearson later on.
And one of the questions that I saw in the chat was, will content be saved for these accounts? Well, any kind of content that you add will be saved for this spring. But remember, these accounts are going to disappear, when school is out. These accounts and your access to these accounts are going to disappear. And there's no way that you're going to be able to transfer content from this account to the permanent accounts that you're going to receive in the fall. So just keep in mind that any work that you do, any of the content that you create or upload into these accounts is temporary only. And then once you get your permanent accounts, then you'll be able to save the content, and you'll have access to that content year after year. Just want to make sure you guys know that, so you don't get frustrated if you've spent a lot of time customizing and adding content only for that to disappear. So now, if you look at that graphic organizer, and let's go back to this again, and look at the second page of that graphic organizer, we're going to start getting into curriculum-specific tools and resources that you'll be able to utilize with your students. So if you've already printed this out, we're going to follow along the same 4 quadrants, and we're going to start in quadrant 1 again. And to access this content, if you click on Browse, and obviously you have the 3 buttons in the middle, Browse Classes and Data, you can click on Browse here, or Browse at the top of the page in the ribbon at the top. And this will show you all the content that you've added to your platform. I'm just going to jump into geometry, since it's in the middle of Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. And for this next part of the tour, we're going to be focusing near the top of the page on these items here, starting from the right: tools, e-text, standards, and resources. So the first quadrant in the graphic organizer is tools. So ladies and gentlemen, click on tools. And there are a few components that I want to point out here. So first of all, if you go down near the bottom of the page, notice that you have access to Exam View. So I'm not sure how many of you have experience with Exam View, but Exam View is a worksheet generator. So it is a program that you'll need to install on your desktop or your laptop. It won't work on a Chromebook because it actually has to be installed on a hard drive. But Exam View comes with a library of questions that you'll be able to pull from. The questions are very easily edited. You can switch between multiple choice and free response. You can scramble question order, that sort of thing. Exam View would be your go-to if you wanted to create customized printable assessments. I'm not sure how handy that will be, this spring, since, we may not be seeing our students for a while. But again, Exam View is a worksheet generator. for creating printable worksheets. And from yesterday's session, actually, someone mentioned that you can upload the ExamView documents into one of your learning platforms, I believe. So yes, you can absolutely print PDFs and upload those to your students as well. So that's what ExamView is all about. And then the next thing I want to point out is the Answers and Solutions software package. This is another software package that you're going to need to install on your desktop or on your laptops. And the Answers and Solutions software is going to give you access to a program, and I've got it open here already. Let me give you a preview of what that program looks like. This program is, the Answers and Solutions software program is where you're going to go to find the answers for anything in the student edition. So the actual student edition, the problems at the end of the chapter, the review tests, the 3-act math and that sort of thing, all of the answers that you find in the student edition, or for the problems in the student edition, are right here in this Answers and Solutions software. So I go to Answers and Solutions, and I can, go to a specific topic. I can dig into a particular lesson. I'll start with the problem set at the end of a chapter, at the end of a lesson. It's called Practice in Problem Solving. Here are all the solutions for this problem set. Notice this is just the answers that I'm looking at here. I can actually reveal the solutions if I want. And then it will show me the worked out solutions step by step. I can select a specific range of questions that I might want to look at. For instance, I want to see 11 through 15, 24, 26, and I can customize the range of questions I'm looking at. And now I can save this solution set to my computer, or I can print it. So this is one of the ways that you can share content with your students and share solutions with your students. So the solutions software package is very flexible, very easy to use, but you have to have it installed on your computers to see the answers and solutions to anything inside the student edition. Now, I keep emphasizing that because there's additional content in the Real Life platform that to find answers and solutions for the additional content, you have to look somewhere else. So for anything in the student edition, it's the Answers and Solutions software. But for the printable content that's on the Real Life platform, you find those solutions someplace else. And I'll show you where those are in just a minute. So I'm going to close this software, go back to the Real Life platform. And once again, here in Tools, I highly encourage you guys to, do some self-exploring to see what other kind of math tools are available here. And you may want to use some of these math tools, if you're leading Zoom webinars with your kids and that sort of thing. These tools are really handy. You also obviously have very quick access to the Desmos Calculators here. So this is kind of, your go-to for quick tools that you might want to use with your students, for presentations, all kinds of digital tools. So that's the first quadrant. Now let's move to the second quadrant and the e-text. So you and your students have access to digital versions of the textbooks. Now, teachers, your textbook, your digital textbook here looks exactly the same as the printed digital, teacher's edition that you have, at home or sitting at your desk at school. So this digital textbook looks exactly the same as your print textbook. And when you open the content, just want to point out a couple of things here, that when you open the textbook, it opens in a new tab in your browser. Realize is still open over here. Just wait for your textbook to open up. Might take a minute or so. And teachers, you can use this digital textbook to do all your planning from home. Can you review all the content, etc. And that way you can leave your actual physical textbook in the classroom if you want. Then, leaving this tab open, I'll go back to the Realize page. Look for the exit button in the top left corner. I click the exit button, and that takes me back onto the Realize platform. So now I can have Realize open and the textbook, which is taking a minute here to open, but it will open here eventually, and then you can have access to both the Realize platform and the textbook side by side. Now, the student edition, I've actually already opened the student edition. The student edition looks quite different from the printed student edition. The content is exactly the same, but the student edition includes a lot of built-in interactivities that your students will have access to. So for instance, if I go here to topic 7, it's one of my favorite topics in geometry, and I can go to topic overview and very quickly navigate to a particular lesson. I can use the next and back buttons to navigate page by page. And then this first activity that I see here, this is one of the places where we have these built-in digital Desmos interactivities that you and your students can access. And so one of the reasons that you may want to assign a section from the textbook to your students is so that they can be sure to be able to engage in these kind of digital activities. So in the student edition, this content is exactly the same, whether it's the interactive student edition or the print version, but it looks different simply because, with the digital activities, it takes up a lot more space and that sort of thing. So one of the things you're going to have to get used to is instead of saying turn to page 219 in the student edition, you should instead say, go to topic 4, lesson 3. And so it's just basically a difference in language there. Not that big a deal. You'll get used to it pretty quickly. And now, from a student point of view, this is Desmos Geometry Calculator. I can, expand this graph, and now I can actually, work in the Desmos environment right there on my screen and do these transformations. So this is a great tool that is built into the Envision curriculum, and the Desmos is throughout the curriculum, and it's a great way for your students to visualize the mathematical concepts that are happening, as they play with this sort of thing. So, for instance, here, I can go into, construction. I had to create a reflection line that I can transform. I'll define a transformation, a reflection. Here's my mirror that I want to select. And I'm going to choose that polygon, apply, and as you can see, it reflects about the line of reflection. So again, these are the kinds of digital resources and exercises that your students will have access to through the student edition. Now, when I go back to Realize here, we see the, again, the teacher's edition, student edition, and so forth. I'm going to go to standards next. Click on standards. This is a very quick way. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but if you want to search for content by standard, click on standards, and then you see the down arrow. As you click on the down arrow, we go from content to domains, or from content to clusters to domains, to finally we reach a specific standard. And when we don't see an arrow anymore, we know that we are finally at the standard we're looking for, and I click on that standard, and this is going to reveal all of the content inside the Realize platform, or inside AGA, that supports this particular standard. So if you want to do searches by standard, that's the way to do it. And finally, resources. This is quadrant number 4 on your graphic organizer. Resources, we'll click on that. This is where you can go if you want to search by type of resource. For instance, if you want to find all the quizzes, you can simply type in quiz, and now all the quizzes in the platform will show up. If I want to find 3-act math, I can search for 3-act math. There it is. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you to find content in a variety of ways. So from resources, I'm going to click on table of contents, This will take me back to the table of contents level. And I'm going to pause for a second to see if you guys have any questions. And in fact, I will unmute everyone just for now to help facilitate these questions. You can go ahead and mute yourself by clicking the microphone. But if you do have a question, feel free to chime in and ask a question, and everyone can hear you. So I'll leave everyone unmuted for a few seconds here to see if you have any questions. And if there are no questions, then we will continue our tour. I'm going to mute everyone again. And Joe, I will unmute you in case you want to chime in. And then we will continue our tour. All right. So let's talk about this e-text for a second. And one of the reasons I've spent a lot of time talking about the digital textbook, and I create a little analogy that might help explain why you might want to use this textbook. Well, first of all, I want to show you the difference between a teacher account and a student account, and then we'll get into the specifics of the textbook and how it may come into play when it comes to assigning content to your students. So a teacher's account at the lesson level looks like this. So this is a lesson. This one happens to be from Algebra 1, but whether it's Algebra 1 or Geometry or Algebra 2, the lesson is going to look essentially the same. The structure is the same type of resources. The navigation is going to be the same. The student account, on the other hand, looks fairly different. And if we compare the teacher account to the student account, it looks like students don't have access to very much. There are a couple of icons that are very important to know. I want to point those icons out. Actually, well, after as we compare the teacher account to the student account, you can see tons of different resources that teachers have access to versus what students apparently have access to. And you can very easily tell what students have access to by looking for a couple of different icons. So first of all, there's a padlock icon that you're going to see on digital content throughout. If it's a padlock, that means that your students will never see it. And for obvious reasons, you don't want students having access to the teacher's edition and solution sets and that sort of thing. The other icon is this, I call this the Game of Thrones icon because it's a person chopped in half. Students won't see these resources unless you assign them to them, all right? So you would need to assign any of the resources that have the, this Game of Thrones icon in order for students to get it in their assignment list, and in order for students to work on that resource, and also in order for you to get data from that resource. So again, if it's the person with the seat belts here, if you want to see data from that resource, if you want students to receive that resource on their assignment list, you would need to assign it. All right. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because students actually do have access to all these resources on their own. The way students will access these resources, though, is through the Interactive Student Edition. So the way I like to think about the Interactive Student Edition is just like any textbook that we send home with our students. Frankly, most of our students will take that textbook, put it on their bookshelf at home, and that textbook is just going to sit there for the remainder of the year, and rarely, if ever, will they actually open the textbook to look at content. So our students, just like that textbook at home, can access any of the content they want passively by going into their Realize account. They can go to their e-text. As you can see, one of the resources here is the Interactive Student Edition. And when they go to the Interactive Student Edition, they will be able to work on those Desmos activities and that sort of thing on their own passively if that's what you want them to do. However, as teachers, you can assign specific content from Realize that matches the same content in the textbook, but this way you can actually get data on the resources that you've assigned to your students. So these are what teachers can assign to their students right here. And in a few minutes, I'll show you exactly how you can create these assignments for your students. So once again, students can access all of the same content through their digital textbook, the Interactive Student Edition. But if teachers want them, want that content to show up on their assignment list, then teachers, you're going to have to assign it to them specifically. So there's the passive access that students have, or the active access that teachers you can assign. Now, back to the Realize platform and the table of contents. So let's talk about the platform itself, or the structure of the program. So there was another graphic organizer that I sent for you that looks like this. And this graphic organizer shows the structure of the program and how, again, you guys are math teachers, you know how a Venn diagram works. There are 3 levels to the program. Right now, we are looking at the table of contents of the highest level of our program. There are many different resources and components within the table of contents. Now, when you first set up your account, this is the view that you had. So notice when you first set up your account, you have this thumbnail view. I apologize for not showing you this earlier. But this is thumbnail view. I don't like thumbnail view. My brain works a lot better if it's in list view. So I change everything to list view. And now this list of topics and components looks like a table of contents. And in fact, if you compare this page to your table of contents in your teacher's edition or student edition, it's exactly the same. Now, from the table of contents level, I can jump to a topic level. So I go to a topic. Now I'm at the middle level of the program, the topic level. And again, if I look at the topic in the textbook, it matches, line for line here with the platform that we see with the components and everything else. And then finally, the deepest level of the program is the lesson level. So I click on the lesson here. And finally, I'm at the deepest level of the program. And here we see all of the teacher resource or the teacher assignable resources from the Realize platform. And there are a ton of different things that we can see here. So this is the deepest level of the platform. To navigate back up that Venn diagram from the lesson level, click the green arrow, takes me to the topic level, and from the topic back up to the table of contents level. So this green arrow is how you can go back uphill to get back to the table of contents level, or you can also go from anywhere in the content, click table of contents here, and it will take you back to the table of contents level. One of the things that you always want to look for, and everyone, if you would, please click on table of contents. So we're all at the same level. And by the way, one source of potential confusion is that there are 2 different platforms that we have here. So there's Realize, that's what we see on the screen right here. The other platform is the student or teacher's edition. So here's the student edition. Sometimes teachers can be confused and think that they are the same thing, or that, when I talk about navigating between, components or content, I'm talking about within the textbook. Nope, not at all. Make sure that you see that there is a difference between the textbook and the Realize platform. And so we can look through the topics here on the Realize platform. So But one of the things you want to look for is teacher resources. So on the right-hand side at the table of contents level, if I click on teacher resources, you can see what kind of resources I have access to at the table of contents level. One of the things I wanted to point out, down at the bottom of this list, this is the Teacher's Edition Program Overview. This is a PDF document that you can download and access. This is basically the instructions for Envision AGA. So if you want to get more in depth on the content, this is where you would go to download, the instructions for the curriculum. It will get into the philosophy of the program, the problem-based learning activities, the 4-step lesson plans, 3-act math, et cetera, et cetera. So this would be, where you may want to start if you just want to understand the program a little bit more in its structure. Wanted to point that out to you. And, but anyway, make sure that wherever you are in the curriculum, you look for teacher resources. Teacher resources also exist in fine print on some of the components in our main list here. So as I scroll down, I can see that the benchmark tests have teacher resources. On down, feeding teacher resources. This is, let me click on teacher resources here on this component. When I click teacher resources for this benchmark, and this is a digital test that I could assign to my students, notice that I have 2 printable versions of the same benchmark test in teacher resources. One is editable as a Word doc. The other is just a PDF. This is also where I'll find the answer key. So remember, when we talked about that software package that you're going to need to download that will give you answers and solutions to all the questions in the textbook, well, this is the other place that you'll need to go to find answers and solutions for resources that you print from the Envision platform. So again, you'll find the components, look for teacher resources, open teacher resources, and that's where you'll find not only the printable version of those digital assessments, but also answer keys to those assessments as well. I'm going to close this and I'm going to go into a topic. I'm just going to jump into topic 4. Could be any topic. Now, look what happened to my list of teacher resources. On the right-hand side, that list of resources has changed because the teacher resources are going to be contextual based on where you are in the platform. So, as I go to the list of components, I see that now I have teacher resources basically on almost everything here. But again, I can access the teacher resources, find the editable versions of the resources I may want to print out, answer keys, etc. Then finally, if I go into a lesson, the deepest level of the platform, the teacher resources change. And as I look through the components, I want to make sure to find, anywhere within the individual components that I see teacher resources too. So I'm going to pause there again and see if anyone has any questions. And this time, instead of just unmuting everyone, if you want to chat in your questions, or if you'd like to ask a question, just send a chat and I'll be happy to unblock everyone. But do any of you have any questions about what we've gone over so far?
Carlton, while they're doing that, can you hear me?
Yes, I got you, Joe.
So while you guys, if you want to put a chat question in there, you've mentioned a few things that I just want to touch bases on to make sure teachers know. You mentioned something about the teacher edition. They only have the teacher edition digitally right now because only the pilot teachers received a physical teacher edition book. And then none of the students would also have a physical textbook right now. They would just be accessing through the computer.
And that's good to know. And so teachers, one of the things that you will want to do, obviously, is make sure that your students know how to access those the resources, the textbook, and then obviously you as a teacher, make sure you know how to access the Teacher's Edition too. Towards the end, I'll log in as a student and show you what the students see. It's super easy, and honestly, within a few days, your students will be able to, help most of you figure out how to navigate things. But Joe, I'm glad that you clarified that. Are there any other questions? All right, so let's keep going. Yeah, go ahead.
There's one that just came in about trainings for students for them to use it, and that was from Adriana. And yesterday we had a teacher who tried it out on a couple of their students, and the students had no problem at all getting through. This was a pre-AP SM2 class, so it was an honors level class, but the students in that class had absolutely no problem, at least those two. So I don't think there's planned to be any training, but I think the kids adapt to the digital stuff better than some of us, me especially.
And that's one of the reasons. Remember, when I showed you guys the comparison between the accounts here, the teacher account versus the student account. A couple of things. First of all, Joe, you're absolutely right. The students adapt to this stuff so much faster than us because they are digital natives and they, will not be able to navigate circles around us. But one of the reasons you see the difference between teacher accounts and student accounts is that we didn't want to overwhelm them with 10 million things to look at. So the student account really is pared down significantly, and but you can assign pieces at a time, so it's a lot more bite-sized for them. So you guys are absolutely right. As from a teacher point of view, it's a ton of stuff to navigate. But once you understand the structure of the program, I think you'll see that it flows very nicely through the lessons, and it's very easy to follow along. But that's the reason why the student accounts look a lot simpler than the teacher accounts, because we just don't want to overwhelm our students when they first log in and see 10 million things to access. But as Joe said, your students will very quickly learn to navigate this stuff, and you'll see that it works very well for them. All right, so back to the platform. And now let's start talking about content-specific stuff and some of the items you might want to assign to your students. So I'm going to go to Algebra 1, and notice this is one of the shortcuts that I'm accessing here. I've got a drop-down menu at the top of the page, and I can click that drop-down menu, and this is one way I can very quickly switch between curricula. So I'll go into Algebra 1 and Topic 3, linear functions, and I'm going to go to Lesson 3, Algebra 1, Topic 3, Lesson 3. And a couple of things that I want you to notice here. So yesterday, someone asked, well, are there any kind of PowerPoints? Is there any way that we can send out content as a presentation to our students? And what I wanted to show you guys very briefly, and I won't be expecting you guys to remember this, for the spring necessarily, but just as a preview, I did mention that the AGA curriculum is based on a 4-step lesson plan. Those 4 steps are right here. Explore is the first step. Understand and apply is step 2. Practice and problem solving is step 3. And finally, assess and differentiate is step 4. If you wanted to present a lesson to your students on Zoom or some other digital platform, Microsoft Teams or whatever, you could start at the Explore step. I would jump into this first step. I'd click on the icon, and it's going to open the real-life platform and turn it into presentation mode. So now as a teacher, I can present from this page. This is a Desmos interactive that I could utilize if I want. And then as a teacher, I can continue presenting by using this drop-down menu to go to the next step in the lesson, then to the next step of the lesson, etc. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this is something you may want to play with if you do plan on, or if you do want to use Realize as a presentation platform for your students. Now, rather than using it as a presentation platform, you may simply want to assign specific content to your students. If that's the case, then let's talk about some of the content that you may want to assign. So again, here I am at the lesson level, the deepest part of the platform. And let's talk about Mathxl. Mathxl for school. There are 5 different Mathxl for school assignments per lesson. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about Mathxl and why you might want to start off by using Mathxl as the assignment that you're going to push out to your students. So look for the blue dot, the blue circle with the pencil and piece of paper icon. Those are your Mathxl assignments. I'm going to click on that, and this launches Mathxl. So as you know, any math curricula that's out there is going to have problem set at the end of the lesson. It's the same with Envision AGA. If you finish a lesson in the print version, there's going to be a printed list of problems for your students to work on at different levels, and application problems and understanding and procedural skill and fluency. And our book is no different. We have those same questions in the textbook. But we also have a digital version of those questions in the textbook, and that's what Mathxl is. So when I click, when I start the assignment, you'll notice first thing down at the bottom of the page, this particular assignment has 27 questions. This may be too many assignments or too many questions for your students. And just like, in the problems at the back of at the end of the lesson, we would assign specific problems, 1 through 10, 1 through 11 odd, and 2 through 20 or whatever. You can customize this assignment and cut those questions down if you want. But what I wanted to point out is the interactive nature of Mathxl. So unlike the problems at the end of a lesson, our kids tried the problem on pencil and paper, and that paper is not going to give them any kind of feedback. Well, with Mathxl, we're going to get feedback as soon as we start. So, for instance, if I just type in something ridiculous and then click check answer, I get immediate feedback that this is wrong. I can read the feedback, click OK, then I can try it again. Check answer. I'll get immediate feedback. Nope, still wrong. I click OK, and then notice I'm going to get one more chance. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, I see this button that says Final Check. I'll go up here, guess something again, Final Check. It's going to mark wrong or show me my answer, and then give me the correct answer. It marks the problem wrong. I can either click OK or try again. Let's go ahead and click OK. When I click OK, as you can see, it marks the problem wrong. And now if I want to, I can skip this problem. Or I could stay on that problem, click the Try Again button, and it's going to generate a brand new problem for me to try. All right? So this is one of the ways that your students can actually practice the mathematical concepts that they're trying to learn without penalty. They can redo a problem as many times as they want until they get it right. So it is conceivable that your students can work on an assignment 100 times and get every single problem right, as long as they do that problem before the due date, or as long as they redo those assignments before the due date. Now, we're going to talk about the question help features now, and this is where Mathxl really turns into a terrific learning opportunity for your students. So I'm going to skip ahead and notice that in Mathxl, I can go to these problems in any order I want. So if I want to start at problem 21, I can. I can skip all over the place. I don't have to follow any order. I'm not stuck in math purgatory where I have to do, successfully complete a problem before it moves me on to the next problem. I don't, I can skip as many problems as I want and get the help that I need, and just focus on what I understand. So here we are with problem number 21 that I chose at random. And I can read this problem and then I say, okay, I don't understand what the heck is happening. So let's go up to question help. So I click on the question help feature, and as you can see, I have access to a lot of different resources. Let's take a look at the textbook. I click textbook, and this is going to be, this is basically a flat version of the actual student edition. And the reason I say a flat version is, and of course now my internet has decided to slow down. It's basically like a color copy of the actual student edition that your students will have access to, and it will open to the very page that, or to the very section in the textbook that your students are working on. And I'm not sure why this thing isn't opening right now. I think my internet is having some issues. But hopefully when you guys click question help, and you select textbook, you're able to see, oh, I see, my block-ups, my pop-ups are blocking it. I'm not sure why. Because I've used this website 1,000 times, you would think that, let's see, allow pop-ups. Bear with me for a second. Here we go. And let's try this again. There we go. I had to allow pop-ups. It's actually a pretty good object lesson. If you guys are having issues with pop-ups, you may need to allow pop-ups in your browser. So, and it opens the textbook. This is a flat version of the textbook. It's not interactive, but all the content's there. This is an exact copy of what the students see, basically, in the print version. So this is one of the ways that your students can access the textbook is through Mathxl. Click help, and then textbook. Now, if the textbook helps them, great. So they can go ahead and answer the question. If it doesn't help, maybe they want to access a video. So here is a video. I'll open this. And I don't think you guys will be able to hear the audio as this thing is playing, but I'll just hit the play button here anyway. And then as this thing is playing, your students can access the content. There are different representations of what the content looks like. And if I hover over this bottom section here, notice that as we go step by step, previous content will appear. So maybe I don't even know how to graph a linear equation by making a graph. Well, if that's the case, then I can click on this link and it will take me to, content that I should have known beforehand. So that's one of the ways that students can basically go back in time to fill in the gaps that they may have when it comes to knowing how to, do these problems. So from here, let me go back to Realize. I'm going to close the video and show you a couple of other question help features. I'll click on question help. This time, view an example. So maybe, I learned a lot from the video, but now I want to see an example. I click view an example. And so now I can see that this example, let me see if I can compare the two. Yeah. So this example is very similar to the actual problem I'm working on, but different. It's not the same numbers. I can't simply copy to, get the correct answer. But I can work through this example, and as a student, I control the pace at which I'm receiving content. So I click the continue button, and as you can see, it tells me how many parts are remaining. I get a couple of lines at a time, and go through the problem that way by viewing an example. And once I'm finished viewing an example, I can close it, go back and answer, whatever question, if I think I have it right or not. I'll just put something in here. And then finally, the highest level of help that I can receive, go back up here to question help, is help me solve this. Now, this is the most powerful help. This is RTI level 2, level 3. And if I click help me solve this, first thing your students are going to notice is that the graph here and the problem that's in the help me solve this feature is exactly the same as the problem that I'm working on as a student. So now it would be easy for me as a student to copy all the work that I see here and just copy it over to the actual problem. But there are two issues with that. So first of all, help me solve this is going to require me as a student to actually participate in the solution process. So, I can answer a question. If I get it right or wrong, I'll get feedback even here. I can continue and, again, checking the answers, getting feedback along the way. So now it's taking me through the solution process. I finish this problem, going through the help me solve this. It helps me solve the actual problem. And finally, I close this. And as a student, the first time I use this, I'm thinking, aha, I've learned how to game the system. I can just cheat my way through until they close that help me solve this feature and they look up and they see this big red X. What that means is as soon as they click help me solve this, it marks the original problem wrong. Then when they close help me solve this, it regenerates that problem with brand new values. So your students will have to do a new problem so they can demonstrate that they've mastered the concept. And once they do that new problem successfully, they will get full credit for it. So there will be no penalty as long as they redo that problem and they do it correctly, and they'll get credit for it. Again, there's no limit to the number of times that they can work on these problems like this. And then the last thing I want to mention about, or two more things I want to mention about Mathxl before I pause for questions. The questions within Mathxl, most of the questions have algorithmically generated values, meaning that Johnny and Susie can sit right next to each other, and Johnny's problem 3.3.30 is going to look different from Susie's 3.3.30. They have different graphs, different numbers. And so this way, Johnny can't look over at Susie's work and just copy what she did. Instead of Johnny saying, hey, Susie, what'd you get for this problem? Johnny has to say, hey, Susie, how did you do this problem? That's an entirely different question. So again, students have different values. It makes it much more difficult for the kids to be able to copy because everybody has different values. And whenever they do a new problem, the problem regenerates and the kids get different values, so they're not doing the same problem over and over and over again. Same concept, but different numbers. Now, the exception to that is the first set of problems within Mathxl. If you look in the student edition, the first set of problems here is in a section called Understand. And it's usually anywhere from 7 to 12 or 15 problems, usually, 5 to 10 problems in a section called Understand. Those initial problems are designed to be problems that can be easily discussed within the classroom. So because we want students to be able to discuss these things and have a teacher-led discussion perhaps on these concepts, all of the problems are going to be exactly the same for every student. Also, the question help features are going to be more limited. So you'll notice that the first few problems with these practice and problem solving problems, the question help features are limited. You don't have an example. You don't have help me solve this. And again, that's because these are designed to be more of a discussion, so everyone can look at the same questions and see what's going on. So anyway, I'm going to pause there, and I see that the chat feature, there's lots of questions. I'll look at chat, and Joe, if you want to chime in and say anything as I'm reviewing the chats.
Okay. I think a couple of things have come up that you've said a few times that I want to make sure we hit. First of all, There will be a link that we provide here in a little while that is going to record everybody's attendance for today. You'll basically go to that link, and there'll be a short little questionnaire where you input your name and the session you attended. There should be a drop-down window. So we'll provide that for you here in a little bit. Do make sure you go in and show that you attended today. And then another thing, you said a few times, Carlton, about how we're communicating with our students. And just wanted to remind you guys, you should have heard from your principals that as a district, teacher-to-student communication is supposed to happen through Schoology conferences. And I don't know Schoology as well as most of you do, but our understanding of that is that it's a liability issue as teachers because there won't be video of students' homes and what may be going on there. So just know that the reason behind it isn't to make things more difficult. It's just to help protect us and our students as far as video and how all that. If you don't know how to do Schoology conferences, there are lots of webinars that are going on this week and next week for us to learn how to do that.
Thanks for the clarification on that, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, I scanned through some of the chats, and it looks like actually, and you guys are on the ball. We're getting questions that come up, and then folks are answering those questions. I appreciate that. So, a couple of questions I will reemphasize, though. Someone asked, where does the try again button appear? Well, the try again appears after a student, tries it 3 different times. So, and by the way, some questions students can only try 1 time or 2 times. If it's a yes/no question, obviously they're only going to be able to try that 1 time. But in general, students have up to 3 different times to try a different question. But if I can check, try check answer, changes to OK, and I'll try it again. Let's see here, check answer, still wrong, and then it goes to final check. If I get the wrong answer again, it's after I get the wrong answer again that the let me go back here. Oops. That try again will appear. Let's see here. Answer and, well, oh, you know what? Sorry. This is that first set of problems that I told you about where the help features are limited. So that first set of problems is going to look a little bit different. But the, the main content, later on as we go into the, the questions that have all the help features that I presented to you before, those are the ones that the try again button will appear. Oops, and of course, I happen to guess the right answer, trying to demonstrate the wrong answer. Let's try this. Check answer, and then, check answer again, and then it's going to final check. After I see the final check, then, oh, well, this is a part 2. Okay. Anyway, after the kids go through, and I don't want to waste your time, and they still get the wrong answers, they'll see this changes to try again, basically. And that's where you can try the questions again. Are there other questions that came up in chat that I wasn't able to answer, Joe? Do you, or that need answers?
One just came up now. Do you hear me?
Yes.
I see Matthew Brady asked, what do they click on after help me solve this to get a new problem?
Oh, so once they close the help me solve this window, the new problem automatically appears. So let me look at, we'll go up here to question 19. So look, this is a brand new problem. I haven't tried it at all. I click help me solve this. It immediately marks this problem wrong. I go through the process of, this process here, and and once I close it, then, and why aren't you cooperating? Something, I'm not sure what's going on with this. This is something I'm going to have to check. There may be, I'm not sure what's going on with this. So guys, I apologize right now. But it should change to a new question that your students can try immediately. And it may be something going on with, yesterday we had New York City for the first time logged in. They adopted our curriculum, so New York City logged in for the first time yesterday. And Joe can testify that it was so slow because millions of kids, were logging in for the first time, and it's, first week after spring break, so it was crazy. So that might be one of the things that's going on with the content here. But this is something I'll follow up with, and I'll get back to you guys on that. But the new problems are automatically generated, and you'll be able to see this. All right, so that's one of the content items that you can assign to your students. Mathxl, look for the blue circles. The other content item that you may want to assign to your students are what I call the red dot assessments. So throughout the platform, there are two different versions of digital assessments. Mathxl is one, and then these red dot assessments are the second version of digital content. In this case, every lesson has a quiz, and these quizzes are similar to Mathxl, but there are some very important differences. So quizzes and tests, these red dot assessments, they do not have any help features because they're designed to be obviously an assessment, and we don't want necessarily to give our students access to help features during an assessment. So when your students take these assessments, we'll log in. You can see we've got fill in the blank, multiple choice, multiple response, drag and drop, lots of different response types here. Emulates the CASP, same kind of question type that your students will see. Now, once your students finish a red dot assessment, there's a feature called auto remediation that is an integral part of our program. So any red dot assessment that you see, whether it's at the table of contents level, the topic level, or the lesson level, most of them have this auto remediation feature. You can tell which ones do have auto remediation. If you click on the More button here, and you see this remediation line, or this link, I'll click remediation, and this is going to display a library of remediation sources that the program is going to pull from to assign to our individual students. So based on a student's performance on this particular lesson quiz, the program is going to choose some of these resources to assign as a follow-up, an automatically generated follow-up assignment for my students. So once they finish the quiz, the students are going to check their assignment list again, and they're going to see follow-up assignments that they need to do. So whereas lesson quizzes do not have help features, lesson quizzes do have, or the red dot assessments do have those follow-up remediation activities that I talked about before. Mathxl, on the other hand, has the question help features, but it does not have the automatically generated follow-up assessments and activities. So those are the two big differences between the Mathxl assignments and the red dot assessments. Also, the red dot assessments have every student gets exactly the same question and exactly the same numbers. So a lot of teachers use these red dot assessments rather than an official high stakes assessment. A lot of teachers use them as a review. And but how you use them is up to you. You can customize both Mathxl assignments and lesson quizzes. You can rearrange the questions. You can create different versions of the questions, and you can eliminate questions and things like that too. I think I saw in one of the chats earlier that how can you customize content and remove questions. Then for instance, this Mathxl assignment, practicing problem solving, I don't want my students doing all 27 problems. So I would click on Customize. I'm just going to open the Mathxl assignment. I can, scroll down. It shows me all the questions that are here. Click Show Question. It gives me a preview of the question. If I click the trash can, it gets rid of that question for the assignment. And this is one of the ways that I can, customize content. I can rearrange that content if I want to, make sure the students are doing them in a different order. If for some reason I wanted to make it even more challenging for students to cheat, I could, or copy off each other, I can rearrange content. And rearranging content, that's really something I would reserve for the red dot assessments, the quizzes and the tests. With Mathxl, I don't think it's that important, but the interface looks exactly the same. And then finally, and this is important too, before I show you how to create assignments, I can edit the title of a customized lesson. So I've just customized this, or a customized assignment. I've just customized this Mathxl assignment, for instance, and I can call this Group A. And I'll save that as Group A. And then I click Done. And then I scroll down and I see that under this assignment that I just customized is the copy of that assignment I just created, a customized copy. Well, let's assign something, and we'll talk about how you can create assignments and how easy it is to push assignments out to your students. So I can click on Assign this Mathxl assignment. And when I click Assign, this box pops up. Now, if you click Assign, if you have not yet created any classes or added students, you're going to get a message saying, hey, you have to create a class first. So I'm just going to ask you to hang in there for just a few seconds here before you create your own classes, so I can make sure that you see how to create an assignment. So I can create an assignment. I can edit the title if I want. I can choose the start date, like the due date, and add instructions if I want. I can specify the times I want my students to access this assignment. And then finally, when it comes to pushing out the assignment, and this is one of the places that the Realize platform is very, very powerful, if you have named your classes according to periods, you can simply start typing in period, and all of the classes that have that word period in it, period 1, will show up, and then I can select a class at a time. This way, from one window, I can assign content to every single one of my classes if I want. Now, another way that I can assign content is to specific students. So maybe I don't want every student doing this assignment. Maybe this is an advanced assignment and I just have a couple of students that I really want to target. Well, I'm going to assign this to, I have Hermione Granger in my class, as we all know. She is brilliant. So I'm going to assign this to Hermione Granger, if I can spell her name correctly. Hermione Granger. I also have Tony Stark in my class. Oh, no, I guess I don't have Tony Stark in my class. But, Ron Weasley in my class here. Ron, no, I guess I don't. Anyway, so now I can assign to specific students. There we go. There's Harry Potter in my class. And then finally, the last way that I can create assignments is by group, or the last way I can assign is to groups. So in a minute, once I show you the course creation process and adding students, I'll show you how to create groups. I have a group called Group A. So as soon as I start typing group, all my group, names pop up. I can select Group A, and now this assignment will go out just to those students that I have chosen for Group A based on whatever criteria I want. I also have a group called Advanced. So maybe I want, this assignment going to my advanced students. I have a group called IEP 504. And let's see, actually, no, I don't. I don't have that one in this is my science class. Sorry about that. But anyway, as you can see, I can create, different group names, different types of groups, and push them, these assignments out to individual groups. So this is one of the ways that you can actively differentiate for your classes right here. So I'm going to cancel this. And just show you one more thing. So that was a Mathxl assignment that I had customized and pushed out to my students. Lesson quizzes, if you click assign a lesson quiz, there's one more component that you're going to notice, and that's this checkbox right here that says automatically assign remediation and enrichment activities. By default, that auto remediation feature is built in. So I can turn this off, and now all of the content that the system will pull from to automatically assign to my students won't have access to any of that content. It turns it off in the computer. However, if I leave this active, then my students will receive those auto remediation features automatically, and that's again by default. If I navigate away from a page that I have just created customized content for, so remember, I customized a Mathxl assignment. When I go down to that Mathxl assignment, I look at this and I don't see my customized version anymore. Make sure that you click versions. You might have to click more first and then versions. But when you click versions, that's when you're going to see the additional versions of the digital resource that you just created. All right. So once again, I see that the chats are blowing up here. Joe, you want to chime in? Anything you want to say, or any questions that we might need to ask?
Well, a lot has come up. Can you hear me, Carlton?
Yes, I can.
A lot has come up, and I just want to remind all the teachers right now, as your head may be feeling like it's going to explode with all this information, remember that Carlton is really trying to jam through the Pearson platform, and you guys should all be noticing there are lots of resources here, and you're not going to get to know all of them in a week's time, but you at least should be seeing that there's plenty here. And we may have specific things district-wide of what we can and cannot do right now during this time. But I don't want to take up Carlton's time on that right now. We did have one question that came in from Matthew. It says, can a customized assignment be shared with other teachers within a PLC? Can teachers share the assignments?
That is a great question. Currently, the answer is no. However, our development team told us at the beginning of the year that this is the most requested feature that teachers have been asking for, is the ability to share assignments. And it is under development, and it's supposed to get to us sometime this spring, the ability for for teachers to share content. It hasn't happened yet, but as soon as it does, we'll definitely send a blast out to you guys to let you know that content sharing will be available. So that's one of those, to be announced. It's coming up soon, and as soon as it does, we'll definitely let you know. And I have to laugh, Brady Howells, I saw your chats here. I'm absolutely a nerd's nerd, and in fact, I'm not sure if you were able to see my students here, but I actually have the Dr. and Rose Tyler in my class. So for those of you who are nerds, you'll know what I'm talking about, and Brady, from your avatar here, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about too. But yes, we're going to create classes next. And so I'm going to close the chats now. And are there any other questions about these two digital assignments and how to push them out to your students? Because if not, what I'd like you to do, folks, is at the top of the page, click on classes. And when you click on classes, it's going to look a little different from my page, because most likely you haven't created any classes yet. Obviously, on my page here, I've got some classes I've already created. But when you click on this page, you're going to see near the top a button that says Create Classes. So, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and click Create Classes. And when you do, you'll see that it is a three-step process. You choose your class name. And I'll just change it to geometry. Choose class picture, and so forth. The most important step here is making sure you choose the correct program for your class. Now, each class, I highly recommend you only choose one program per class, and that way your students aren't confused as to which book to open. They just go into their class and they see only that single program. So obviously, since it's a geometry class, I'll choose the geometry curriculum. And, you know, then step 3, this is where I add the students. So now, this spreadsheet view, this is the only time when you create this class, this is the only time you're going to be able to see the spreadsheet view and enter all your students, you know, in this spreadsheet format. Once you save this page, you can continue adding students, but it will be one student at a time that you'll be able to add. So if you prefer this spreadsheet view, you know, make sure you have all your ducks in order to add all your students simultaneously. You will type a student's name. It's always last name first. So let's see, Noble, Donna. So we've got Donna Noble as a student. Username. Now this is where Joe and Veronica can chime in. The usernames are probably going to be the most painful part of this process, but fortunately, Joe and Veronica have already come up with a good way or a good format that you can use to help you with student names. So username. Joe, you want to talk about this?
Yeah. Here, you guys should have each had at least one class set up for you that either Veronica or myself did, and by far, this list page is the best way to add students. In fact, if you just open another browser window with PowerSchool, what I basically did was went back and forth cutting and pasting names or copying and pasting names from PowerSchool here. So you just copy from PowerSchool, then open this browser, go where student name is, and they're already listed last name, comma, first name. So that's one way to quickly get the student names in. As far as the username went, this is the part where it's up to you how you want to do it. Veronica and I followed the same algorithm, the same coding that they used with the pilot teachers. And so each one of you, when I emailed you your own teacher username, like 99ET27, that's your username that you sign in with. And that's what they used for the pilot. And all they did is at the end of your username, they put S, and then they just started numbering students in order. And if you open the class that we created for you, you should see that. And so it's really easy to do. You also can copy and paste, and then you just change the number at the end to the next number in the sequence. The only challenge you're going to run into if you use this username is how you're going to get that out to your students. For you guys, we sent you each an individual email. That's a lot of emails to send. That's what we did to you. That's a lot to send to your students. Someone just mentioned in the chat about using the student ID number. You have to realize that this username has to be different for every single student in the nation that's using this platform. So we found out that some of our student IDs actually didn't work when teachers tried to use them. We have heard that if you put like the initials of your school, so you could do like TDHS for Downey and then their student ID, that may work out. Remember, this is all going to be different next year. It's a pain for us to have to do it this way, but we feel this is a small price to pay to be able to use this platform if you want to use it. And then what we did for password is we just put ABCD 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just cut and paste to everybody. So it's, you know, that would just copy, and you can populate all of those boxes very quickly just doing a copy paste, you know, Control C, Control V. So I don't know if that helps. I mean, it's what we used. The hardest part is just going to be maybe getting out to your students. Some people mentioned about the Remind app. They use Remind, so that was one way they decided to get each student their own personal, and that's how students will get in. They'll go to the Realize web page right now. It's not single sign-in. They have to go on a browser to Pearson Realize, and then just like you input your username and your password, they'll input their username and that password, whatever that is. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah, and that's important to remember is this way of accessing the program, that's only for this spring and this extraordinary time that we're in. Once you guys start using the program in the fall, all of this course creation and student rostering is going to be done for you behind the scenes, and you won't ever have to worry about this again. But for now, unfortunately, this is one of the pain points with this program is just creating these courses and adding the student names. Now, you've probably already seen in the chats that Veronica posted a couple of formats for students' name and passwords. I've also put those on my class here. Username 99ET, the double hashtag there, that's the teacher number, then S, and then the single hashtag, that would be the student number. So that's one suggested way to enter username, and then a common password for everyone, ABCD1234, and then they can change. The students can change it once, the first time they log in. So you are certainly welcome to continue working on adding your students and things if you want. But what I wanted to point out to you here. Let me go ahead and change this. Noble.
And you're still right there, Carlton. So you can add all the extra lines at the bottom. So it defaults to showing 10 lines. If you know your class has 35, just put add 25 right there, and it'll have all that for you.
Exactly. So I can add up to 30 lines here, as you can see. Thanks for pointing that out. And then once I'm finished, I'll save that. It will create my class. And now that class I just created shows up in my class list. And now let's talk about what will happen if I want to add additional students to this class. So now my geometry class, I'll click on students and groups. Here's Donna Noble, my student who's already in this class, and I want to add a student to class. So rather than seeing that spreadsheet view, this is what I was talking about with the student by student interface. So now we go in and have to type in student name, username, and password, all in one step, click done, and then go to the next student and so forth. So that's how you would add a student once you've gone through the account creation process. Removing a student is as easy as clicking the remove button, and then that student will be taken out of your class. Now, next fall, when students come into your class or when students leave your class, it will automatically update in your account based on when it goes through PowerSchool. So you won't have to worry about removing classes and removing students and adding students to your classes. It will happen automatically. This is also how you can manually reset student passwords currently, but in the fall, you won't have to worry about managing passwords either. That's just for now. All right. So that's how you can create classes and add students. If you want to use groups, and there are a variety of reasons that you might want to use groups, we can, you notice at the top of the page, here I am in classes. I'm in the student and groups sections of my classes. I click show groups, and I've got a whole bunch of different groups that I've already created here. If you've never created a group yet, you'll choose create group. And I'm going to call this one my IEP 504 group, because I have students that need reduced workloads. So IEP 504, I click done. And then I go to my list and I find that group I just created. and then I select Manage Students and Groups. And if I need to add Donna Noble here, for instance, into my IEP 504 group, I would click her name and click Save, and now she's been added to that group. I can also go to different periods. So let's go to Algebra 1. And as you can see here, I have all kinds of students in my Algebra 1 class. I have a very distinguished class here. And I can go to Show Groups again, scroll down until I find that IEP 504 group, Manage Students and Groups. The checkbox appears next to all the students I need to add. And, I can very quickly, add those students to my groups. And save. And so this way I can create groups and then add students from all of my classes into those, different groups. And it's a very nice way of differentiating all across, all of my classes. And that way it makes my life easier because now I can simply assign to these different groups. All right. Do you guys have any questions about creating classes, adding students, or any questions about groups? I'll look at the chat button here and see if you guys have any questions, or if Joe, you have anything else you want. Oh, good. Earlier, Veronica was talking about which curricula you would want to assign to a particular course. Joe, Veronica, you guys want to chime in and talk about SMS or SM2, SM1, SM3?
Yeah, SM1 should be the Algebra 1, SM2 would be Geometry, and SM3 would be Algebra 2. But remember, like Carlton said, if you wanted content from one of those other courses, you could still push that out to students. But those would be the textbooks that would go with each of those courses.
Yes. And just because a student, just because a class only has one program assigned to it, that does not mean you can't assign from other programs. Because remember, if you, as a teacher, have added those other programs to your personal teacher account, you can still access content from any course to assign to any of your classes.
And every one of our teachers, if given this account that I sent that email out to you with your username, you have access to Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, all three of those.
Now, before we look at data, there is one thing that I want to show you in terms of the printable resources that are available to you. So we focused only on the digital content and the digital assignments. So I'm going to go to Browse here, and I'm going to jump back into Algebra 1, and we'll look at the Mathxl assignments again and the quizzes. I'm just going to open a random lesson. So we talked about this practice in problem solving Mathxl, and I mentioned that each lesson has 5 different Mathxl assignments. Also, each lesson has a lesson quiz embedded. So what about those students who don't have reliable computer access at home, or because of their IEP or 504, they need a printed version of an assignment? Well, so first of all, this Mathxl assignment here, the practice in problem solving, this is available in print because it's the same problem set that's at the end of each lesson in the student edition. So the print version of practice in problem solving, that's in the student edition. If I go down into the assess and differentiate section of the lesson, I see this Mathxl for school, reteach to build understanding. This is a digital assignment. But notice that just below it is Reteach to Build Understanding PDF. So this is the digital version. This is the print version just below it. Looking further, here's additional practice as a digital Mathxl assignment. Just below it is additional practice PDF. And then finally, digital Mathxl enrichment, printable enrichment PDF. So in assess and differentiate, the printable version of the Mathxl assignments are in tandem or just below the actual Mathxl for School assignment. They occur as a pair. So that's how you access the printable version of those assignments. Now, back up to practice and problem solving. You notice that I've been kind of skimming over this mixed review assignment here. Mixed review only has a digital version. There is no printable version of mixed review. It only occurs as a digital assignment. And mixed review is designed to be an assignment you give your students if you want to spiral previous content and make sure students are reviewing content throughout the year. Now, how about these red dot assessments? Well, if you'll remember, near the beginning of our session, I talked about looking for the teacher resources link. So if I click teacher resources, this is where I will access not only the answer key, but the printable version of those digital resources. So the red dot assessments, you click teacher resources, and that's where you're going to find the printable version that's been pre-created for you that you can give to your students. All right, some more questions have come in, and I love this question. Any access to Precalc? Well, you don't have access to Precalc through this platform, but we do have access to Precalc through our My Math Lab platform. And I'm happy to set up access to, or give teachers access to, statistics, pre-calculus, and calculus, any of our higher ed titles. Joe and Veronica, if that's something that you would like us to do, I can certainly send you guys access to those platforms as well. Any other questions here? So here from D, I keep getting an error message about creating assignments. Yeah, you're going to have to make sure you add programs to your classes, and sometimes you might need to log out of your platform and log back in. But make sure that you've actually added a program to your class, and that will allow you then to create assignments once you've added the content. All right. Any other questions, or Joe, is there anything else I need to cover before we get into reviewing data?
Did I mute myself?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I think with the time we have remaining, go ahead and get into the data portion of it, and then we can stick around if that's possible. This is your join me, but Veronica and I can stick around and answer any questions that teachers have, if that's okay with you, if you present the data part and then we have some time at the end.
Cool. All right. So looking at data, so you can assign content to your students. And by the way, one of the pieces of content that you might want to assign to your students is that digital, the interactive student edition. So at the lesson level, you'll notice that one of the first components here that shows up, Interactive Student Edition, Realized Reader, Lesson 3-3. Well, if you want that assignment, if you want this section of the textbook to show up on your student's assignment list, then you can assign it right here. And it will show up on their assignment list. The work that they do within the Student Edition will be saved, and you can review that work from a teacher point of view. You can also get data from the student's work and adjust your grade, or that can inform your grading accordingly. If you have those motivated students that do work on their own, that work is saved in their personal accounts, but you will not be able to see any of the work that they have done as a student unless you have assigned it first. Now, the student work will be saved, but you won't be able to see it until you assign it, and then students would have to go into the assignments they've already done and basically just turn it in, and then you'd be able to see their work. So same thing goes with each individual component here. If you really want your students to work on this specific example and you want data showing they've worked on it, you can assign this specific example. Now, I don't recommend that you necessarily do that, because you don't want to overwhelm your students with 10 million things showing up in their assignment list. And remember, they can already access all of these things through the Interactive Student Edition on their own. So you would only want to assign things if you wanted to if you want that thing to show up on the student list, on their assignment list, and if you wanted to look at data from those components. Now, having said that, once you've pushed out assignments, there are two ways to look at data. So I'm going to go back to classes, and I'm going to choose the class that I want to look at my assignments for. So here's Algebra 1, and I click on Assignments from Algebra 1, and I see here that I'm going to have two different tabs available. There's Assignments by Class and Assignments by Student. First of all, Assignments by Class, I scroll down, and I can see, you know, I've got a bunch of assignments here that no one has started yet. So I have 36 students. None of my students have started it. Got a due date here. I go down, I see that in geometry for topic 2, lesson 1, 19 of my 36 students have completed this quiz with a 29% average. That's the class average. If I click on this link, or if I click on the assignment, I get this box that shows up, and I can edit the assignment. You know, I can change the due date if I want. I can't change the content, but I can change the due date. I can add additional students to this assignment if I want. I can also preview the assignment by, you know, clicking preview and then clicking the data button. So once again, I'll go down to the quiz. Clicking the data button here, that gives me that nice alphabetical list of students, and I can go through and see how students did on the assignments, and that way I can very easily transfer scores from you know, this quiz to my gradebook. So that's one of the ways that I can look at data is by class. Now, if I click on assignments by student, now I see every single student in my class in alphabetical order. This is my student's average. And so if I want to look at Hermione Granger and see why on earth does she only have a 36%, well, I click on Hermione, and you know, this is a list of her assignments, and I can see that she has a ton of things that are past due. And then I can actually go into, you know, this quiz that she completed. She only got a 14%. Well, why did she only get 14%? I'll click on that quiz. And now I can actually review her work. You see the review button here. And I can look at, you know, the individual questions, see her response, what she got right, what she got wrong. And so this is how I can actually go in and analyze and review the work that Hermione has done. And if I want to make a comment on that, I can. Notice there was a comment. I can add a comment to Hermione and post the comment. So again, from classes, I can look at data by class and see a class average. I can also look at data by students. Another, and frankly more powerful way to look at data is by clicking on the Data tab. So at the top of the page, I click on Data, I choose the class, and this is something that's very important. In fact, let me choose another class so I can show you what you will see when you first log in. So you're going to create some assignments, and you are going to assign those components, and maybe you choose a due date that's a week out. So the assignment isn't due until next Friday, but I know that some of my students have worked on their assignments, and I want to see how they're doing. Well, the first time you log in, even though you know that your students have done those assignments, you're going to click on Data, and this is what you're going to see. No scores to show you. And you're going to say, what the heck's going on? I know that some of my students have done these assignments. Why can't I see data? Well, the reason is because you can't see data unless you have chosen a date range near the top of your page here. I think by default, it's the last 7 days. But you're going to need to customize the date range so that it goes past the due date. The data appears by due date, not by assigned by date. So make sure you choose customized range and then select dates here that go past the due date. Once you do that, then you'll be able to see all those assignments that you've created once students have submitted their assignments. So once you have data and you've made sure to choose past the due date, I'm going to custom range, and we'll go from, let's go back way back from December through April, and now I'll see. Well, I guess I haven't gone back far enough. Module 1. I'll be able to see a whole bunch of bar graphs here that will appear. And why aren't you wanting to cooperate with me? Well, this is frustrating. I'm not sure what's going on here. Let me see if I can choose another class. Sorry about this, guys. Again, it might be, okay, so this is what your graphs are going to look like. And so you're going to see 3 different graphs appear. The graph on the bottom is usage. This tells me how much time my students are spending on each assignment. Notice as I hover over each bar, the name of the assignment appears. If I click on a bar, it tells me how much time each student has spent on an assignment. If I look at the graph in the middle, this is usage. So this tells me how many of my students have completed a particular assignment. But it's the graph at the top that I'm probably going to spend most of my time in. Because, again, as you notice, I can hover over a graph, over a bar, the assignment appears. If I click on that bar, now I have access to some very detailed data. So first of all, this is standards analysis. I can see data by standard. This quiz only analyzed one standard. I know that because it tells me right here. And also it only has one column. Some quizzes and tests and Mathxl assignments will look at 2 or more different standards. If that's the case, I'll see 2 columns of data. If I want to know exactly what that standard was, I can click on the standard. It shows me the standards. And then I can view resources by standard that I can assign as follow-up to this assignment if I want to. From here, I can go to question analysis. That's the next tab. And this is basically your item analysis feature, where if I want to know, which questions did most of my students have problems with, well, it looks like number 2. These, 17 students got it wrong. I'll click on those 17 students. This is one way that I can figure out which students got it right, which students got it wrong. These are also links here, these bars, and that way I can go through student by student and see, exactly what they got right and wrong on this question. Student analysis, and guys, I know I'm going really fast, but once you have played with these tabs, it'll make a lot more sense to you. I just want to make sure you see the features that are here. This is a nice visual representation to show you that, oh man, Jean Grey here, she's not doing so well. Princess Leia, hey, she's doing pretty good. She only missed one. So that's a nice visual representation for student analysis. And then finally, performance analysis. This is a nice way for you to set a breakpoint in your class of whatever, line you want to select or break that you want to select. And this will automatically group your students into those who scored less than 60% and then those who scored at or above 60%. So now that I have these ad hoc groups that I've just created based on this breakpoint that I've chosen, I can actually assign resources to these individual groups. So those who scored below 60%, maybe I need some intensive, help for these kids. I can go through and choose content to assign to those groups. Same thing for my group that scored above 60%. I can assign maybe challenge resources or whatever. I can also rearrange content or rearrange students. So, Bruce Banner, man, I do not want to make that guy mad. You wouldn't like him when he gets mad. So I want to put Bruce Banner over here in this group. But you know what? Call Drogo. I'm going to put him, back in this group. Even students who haven't started yet, I can drag and drop them to these columns, and now I can assign specific resources to students as well. So that's just some of the ways that you can look at data by class or with the data tab. There are tons of tons of content that you can assign to your students. And I know that we're right up against our ceiling here, but I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions that you guys might have. And Joe, if you want to chime in once again here, I'll go on pause so you can see if there are any questions that we need to answer.
Hey, a quick question. As you're setting up your classes, so Carlton, is 40 the max per class that we have set up right now?
I don't think there is a max. That's a question I'll have to get into, because frankly, I'm not sure if there is an upper limit. There shouldn't be, but that's something we'll have to ask our tech folks. Are some folks having issues with more than 40?
I think Nicole had entered a bunch of things, and only two of those students were in there. So I thought maybe it was because we had a max limit of 40, because most of our classes aren't supposed to have more than 40, but somebody wanted to put all of their students in just one class and run it that way. So
I gotcha. And that may be the problem, that there could be a max number. I haven't hit that max, but then, I've never, seen someone try to put more than 40 into a single class. So the answer to that question is I'm not sure, but that could possibly be the reason why that class wasn't able to be created.
Another question came up from D. Is hiding an assignment the same as deleting an assignment? And if not, how do you delete an assignment?
So hiding an assignment is the same as deleting, but deleting with the possibility of bringing it back later. So you right now, you are not able to delete an assignment from memory altogether. You can hide it, and that way your students can't see it, and it won't affect their grades once you hide it. But if for some reason you want them to go back to that assignment, you simply unhide that assignment and it's still there.
Okay. Veronica just chatted in that the frequently asked questions document says there's no max limit per class. But I'm not sure if maybe for this pilot, we had mentioned that most class sizes maxes were 40. I'm not sure if you guys would have set them up that way or not. So we'll look into that and get back to you, Nicole. We'll do that. Why don't we, since we're past 3 o'clock right now, Veronica put in the chat the link for you to put your attendance. So go ahead and make sure you do, all of you who attended this, make sure you go to that link, choose Pearson AGA as the webinar. You can either put Carlton or Pearson as the presenter. And so I'm sure there's tons of questions, but hopefully we'll be able to, throughout the week, you can email Veronica or I, or like I said, we will be having some Microsoft team chats and give you guys a chance to ask questions later in the week, maybe after you've had a chance to play with this. So we'll let all of you go now, unless you have more questions. Remember the special ed teachers. Jason Skeen from Davis was one of the teachers who piloted and found this curriculum very useful for his, very customizable for his students. So send me an email and we'll get you in touch with Jason and I'll get you your accounts. And then Carlton, if you have any closing words you'd like to do, and if it's possible, Veronica and I can stay on for a few more questions if teachers have them right now.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to say, guys, thanks for your patience. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. And it's, as you know, it's hard sometimes to get across all the information when we can't see face to face. But I really appreciate your patience and also your, perseverance and wanting to hang in there and learn as much as possible. Go easy on yourself. You won't remember everything, and that's okay. But feel free to access all those help features. And this is the time to play around and with the resources and find what works best for your students. And hopefully, you know, somewhere in there you found something that'll be useful for you over the next few weeks. And you know, I wish you guys the best. We're all in this together, and we'll be seeing you guys again soon for more in-depth training. So hang in there, guys, and thanks for your time. So Veronica, Joe, I'll keep the line open for other questions.
Thank you very much, Carlton. You guys know, I said it at the beginning, we were not anticipating to be able to use Pearson for the rest of this year, except for those pilot teachers. So they were very gracious to open this up for us. Thank you to Chad and Ann. Priscilla was on the line earlier too. They were part of our pilot team, and they were answering some of your questions as we went through. Maybe Carlton, if you can still hear me, then we're going to try this. Everybody who's going to stay online and who might want to ask a question, can you please at least make sure your video's off and mute your computers? And then if you can chat in with us that you have a question, then we can have you unmute and ask a question if you do. So thank you guys for attending, and good luck with all this. Thank you.
So, Joe, Veronica, someone asked for the attendance link. So if one of you could put the attendance link back into the chat.
Yeah, Veronica will have that back in there. It was back a ways. If you go back in the chat, it was at 2:48 p.m. Otherwise, Veronica probably already has it in there.
There it is.
Yep.
Veronica's on the ball.
Always.
And remember, guys, for this spring, you as teachers and your students need to go to pearsonrealize.com and click sign in. That's how you and your students will access your accounts.
So if you're still on this webinar, if you have a question that you'd like to ask or whatever, let's see, will this link for math be staff applications? I believe Pearson Realize may already be one. Let me check real quick.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe, to interrupt a question, how to delete a class. In a class list, there's the hide class link. You can still see it on my screen here. You can just click hide class, and then the class will go away.
Pearson Realize is already one of the staff applications we have for MCS, so you can access Pearson Realize that way. And yes, Charity, you do want to log in with the username and password that I sent to you through your email. That'll get you in. It's the 99ET and then whatever that number was at the end. See, Nicole, you're asking, does the, let's see, you delete a class with students? You should be able to just, you want to hit that one, Carlton, deleting a class with students in it?
So once a username has already been selected, even if you hide that class or delete that class, that username is already taken. So most likely, or I'm 99% sure that once you've put that username into a class, even if you had that class, that username is no longer available. So you'll need to select a new username.
So I think that answered both of your questions, Nicole. Anything else? Whether you guys, if you could chat something in. we missed anything else, I wrote some notes down. Remember, when we communicate with teachers, we're going to use Microsoft Teams, but with students, we're going to want to use Schoology conferences. So there's webinars going on this week to learn that.
And so there's a question from Edie or Eddie, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but about content.
Great question, Edie, and that's special ed, and so we haven't even set up anything for math, you know, for either SM1, SM2, or SM3. What we were assuming is that teachers would have known where they left off and what their students needed based on the pacing calendar, and those should be conversations that they're having at their site with their PLCs. I think the best thing, Edie, will be for us to get in touch with Jason Skeen. And though you may not have been in the same spot as him, he, like I said, was one of the pilot teachers with this, and I think he would really be the best resource for what you might want to do. Us math teachers get to be funny creatures sometimes, right? We sometimes want people to tell us what to cover, and then at other times we want to, like, well, what if I feel my students need something else? And remember, as long as those standards that our students are supposed to learn, as long as we're falling back on that, you know where your class was and what your students need. You are the big professional there. Call. So I think where we are, unless there are more questions that are going to come in, remember, you guys can reach out to Veronica and I anytime, and we're going to let Carlton go. He's got plenty to do, I'm sure, and we are able to get in touch with Carlton, so if there are questions that we don't know answers to, our expert pilot teachers don't know the answers to, then we'll reach out to Carlton and find that for you. But let's go ahead and respect Carlton's time too and let him go. And you guys follow up with us through email. And like I said, we'll be having some more of these chats on Microsoft Teams and learn some of the things that we're all figuring out. So thank you guys. Carlton, again, thank you very much. If you want to go ahead and end this, then we can go ahead and do that.
All right, we'll do. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll be talking to you all soon.
Thank you, Carlton.